Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 717 of the Juicebox Podcast. 717. Today's guest is an adult who lives with type 1 diabetes named Myriam, and she's here today to talk about a number of things, including her pregnancy. While you're listening, please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. If you have type 1 diabetes and are from the United States or are the caregiver of someone with type 1, you can go to t1dexchange.org/juicebox. Spend just a few minutes answering simple questions about type 1 diabetes. When you do this, you'll be helping people living with type 1 and supporting the podcast. t1dexchange.org/juicebox. Are you looking for the Diabetes Pro Tip series or the other series within the podcast? Head to the Facebook group, Juicebox Podcast Type 1 Diabetes. Look in the feature tab. There are lists of all of the series right there. They'll help you get started. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Dexcom, makers of the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. Learn more and get started today at dexcom.com/juicebox. The podcast is also sponsored today by InPen from Medtronic Diabetes. There's a great explanation of the InPen at inpentoday.com. There are links in the show notes of the podcast player you're listening in right now and links at juiceboxpodcast.com to these and all the sponsors.
Well, my name is Myriam, and so I'm living with type 1 diabetes for over 20 years, and I'm from Canada. I'm in the area of Montreal. And I am interested in sharing a bit of my story and how I've gone through different life stages, specifically my latest story with giving birth to my daughter.
That sounds good. Are you from Canada originally?
Yes, so I grew up mostly in the Quebec area, and I've traveled a bit in and out of Canada, but mostly around Montreal area all of my life.
Okay, cool. Did we say how old you were, or are we not doing that?
I'm in my 20s.
Okay, that's
so
fair.
I'm officially not young anymore.
You think in your 20s makes you not young anymore?
I passed 25, so that's why.
No, Myriam. I would, I'd murder a stranger to be in my 20s again. What do you think of that?
Oh, no.
Who did nothing wrong.
I hope not. I mean, every stage is good, and I try to appreciate every stage.
Yes.
But it does kind of shock you once the years go by faster than you can count.
Yeah, no, I understand. And I probably would not actually, in my fanciful idea, take another person's life so I could be younger. I mean, I don't think...
It probably wouldn't work.
Well, let me just say, let's say we were in a magical situation where this happened. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't do it. There you go. I think that's you would hope not. That's as honest of an answer as I can give right now. What do you think of that? I've never hurt anything in my entire life, but my back and my knee are stiff, and I'm on the back 9 already. I know people don't think of it that way. May I digress 14 seconds into your podcast episode for a second? I was saying to someone the other day that and this is because my mom is 79, right? And I'm watching her have like a health issue. And I told my wife in a really, I am assuming was a serious moment, but I'm not sure if she thought I was being comical, but I definitely was not. I'm 50 years old, and I told her I am going to start living like I only have 15 years left to live. Mm. And I was like, and it doesn't matter to me if I live past the 15 years. I'm going to treat these 15 years as good, actionable quality time. Like I'm just going to do that. And because I don't want to get to the point where I'm older and I'm like, oh, we finally did it. We saved up money and we retired and I'm all ready. And then suddenly something catastrophic happens. And what am I going to do then? My money's not going to save me that I saved, right? So
I totally get that. I mean, I think we have a tendency to always want to save up for, retirement or save up for later, we'll travel later. But that's kind of my philosophy too, is just, enjoy, do the most that you can right now. And it doesn't mean not saving up for the future, but it does mean, really living life to the fullest also in the present, because you don't know, like the future is not guaranteed. So you don't know how much time you'll have or what you'll be able to do with it, or if you'll be healthy down the road. So I think it's really important to do the best that you can now and really enjoy life.
Right. And it's not like I didn't understand that all academically. But I don't know, it just made more sense when suddenly I saw my mom. Like, my mom's older. She's not like in even the prime of her retirement, but she was getting ready to make a move. She was going to move somewhere. She was going to travel a little bit, land somewhere else. And then all of a sudden, like, none of that is possible. So I'm like, all right, I'm not going to have that happen. So I'm going to save like I'm saving, but I'm going to try to make a little more time for myself here. At the same time, and this I think is interesting, the podcast is a business on top of something I just enjoy. And it is as strong as it's ever been right now. Like, I can't set it down and say to myself, like, oh, it'll be here when I get back. So I'm going to have to do some pretty strategic planning around how I take time off. But I think it's going to be worth it. So that's what I'm going to do.
It's a really good plan, though.
It has nothing to do with you, though.
As they say, work is always going to be there somehow, in some form. And yes, I mean, it always seems like we have the perfect opportunity right now, but sometimes we still need to be able to take time for ourselves and take time off.
I am going to try to do that. We'll see we'll see how successful I am. Or if I'm just like, next time this year, I'm talking to someone else and I go, last year I told this lady from Montreal that, and I never did it. But okay, so how old were you when you were diagnosed?
I was almost 2 years old.
Okay. Yes. Wow. That's how old
Still
Arden was.
A baby.
Yeah, that's how old Arden was.
Oh, wow.
Do you have any other autoimmune issues?
No, that I am very grateful for, because that I don't have any complications and I don't have any other health issues, actually.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, that's excellent.
I think that's enough.
That's enough. Now, are you what they call coupled, married? Are you with another person?
Yes, I'm married.
Children?
Yes, so that's we have one daughter together.
Oh, congratulations! The baby cannot be that old, because you're young and you're calling yourself old. So
no, our baby is 1.5 years.
Yeah. So. All right. Unless I was thinking maybe baby's 4 and you were calling her like a teenager already, because you really did overestimate your own age. You basically were like, I'm on my way out, Scott. I'm in my 20s.
No, not that bad. Not that bad. It just hit because my birthday was not so long ago, so that's why.
It stuck in your head a little bit, didn't it?
What's that?
It sticks in your head a little, like the passage of time.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It does happen.
Like it. But no, our daughter is young. I admit that.
I admit that. Congratulations. That's lovely. Any concerns about when you thought to make a family? Any concerns about diabetes being, with your daughter at some point?
Yes, I mean, it was one of our worries. I mean, I don't think we focused on it a whole lot because of the fact that I was I was healthy and I didn't have any complications related to diabetes, and I was as far as like my doctors were concerned, they were saying that I was doing a very good job managing my diabetes, so we weren't overly concerned about it. As far as her developing diabetes, I think it came a bit later once she was born and all that. I think the concern was more of like how my diabetes could affect her during pregnancy. Yeah. And the doctors made sure to remind us a whole lot of times about the concerns that might be related to, having or carrying a baby while having diabetes.
I believe I know the answer to this question, but just so I'm certain, do you live in a part of Canada where they manage type 1 like it's 2021, or they manage it like it's 1978?
Well, it's hard to say because I haven't compared it with like other areas, but I would definitely say that it's 1970s more than 2020. As far as like being updated or up to date on like the literature and like the possibilities and all that, it's definitely a bit outdated.
What
Where
about
we're at.
insulin and technology? What kind of insulin are you using?
I'm using Humalog. I've always used Humalog. Well, kind of just switched because now it's become generic. So Admalog, I think it's called now.
Okay.
So it's still the same thing. And I'm on an insulin pump I've been on now for, I guess, about 13, 14 years.
Okay. All right. So you've been pumping for a really long time.
Yes.
Yeah, there are just
yes.
places in Canada that'll give you like regular and MPH and give you a sliding scale and be like, there you go. Good luck. So.
Yeah, no, it's not that bad. I mean, I did have a good opportunity too because I ended up being on the insulin pump program in Quebec. So right when it started out back in like the mid 2000s.
Okay. What kind of pump did you get back then?
I was first on the Animus, if I remember correctly.
Was it the Ping?
Yes.
Yeah.
And not even the Ping. I think I started before the Ping.
Oh, before that even. Wow, look at that. Look at you. And now,
and I kind of progressed through all the developments of the pumps now.
How many different ones do you think you've had?
Well, if I really didn't start on the Ping, I believe I didn't. So that would be 4 because I went to the Ping afterwards, and then I switched to Medtronic, and then I switched to Tandem, and now I'm currently on Tandem.
Are you using the Control IQ?
Yes, I am.
How do you find that to be?
When I was pregnant, I was using the basal IQ because the Control IQ wasn't out in Canada yet. And I thought it was really neat for the low blood sugars, preventing low blood sugars and stuff. Control IQ is interesting for someone that's always been like super detailed and super like control oriented as far as like managing my range of blood sugars. I think it's I have to do a lot of letting go because it does keep me a little bit higher than I would like. But the numbers are good as far as like A1C levels and stuff. So my endocrinologist thinks it's really great. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it is great in the sense that I have less hands-on work to do. But it does give me more like high blood sugars than I would like.
How would you describe your eating style? What's in the mix during the week?
So I am a vegetarian. So I do pay attention a lot to what I eat, and I try to do a lot of whole grains and fruits and vegetables and beans and all that. I do try to mix it up a bit. I do find that my breakfasts I try to keep it very similar from one day to the other because I get a little bit of the dawn phenomenon in the morning. So that is a bit of I try to keep it as simple as possible in the morning so that I prevent as much as possible the dawn phenomenon. So that's a lot of oatmeal. Lots of oatmeals in this home. And then lunch and dinner are more varied, and I try to change it up with different grains like quinoa, rice, and all that, and mix it up with different types of veggies and all that.
Okay.
So
I want to delve into this for a second. First thing, sure. And this is just a small aside. When you said you're a vegetarian, the thought that ran through my head was, oh, wow, they can grow vegetables in Canada? Oh, no. Which I quickly dismissed that thought, but it was the first thought. I was like, wow, how do they get through the ice to plant the seeds?
It's not icy all year long. We're not in the Great North.
Listen, you understand that academically I know that, right? But it's still just the way it occurred to me. Like I'm a child.
I know. And I mean, we are talking right in the winter, so it does add to that feeling of like it's icy and cold. But we do get summer. We do have summer. I mean, we plant like in June and we pick the vegetables in
late June.
No, by the end of like September, we have to pretty much pick up everything except for like squashes and stuff. I mean, it's a short season.
Yeah. All right. Well, still. And so you said that you've always had kind of like, kind of a tight control over everything. So I want to know a little bit about I mean, obviously, if you're diagnosed when you're 2, you're not doing anything. When did you
Right.
start getting involved in your management, and when were you completely in charge of it?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I would say like probably conscious that like conscious involvement or like sharing into like the decisions of what I'm going to eat and all that. I feel like it was pretty young, like around 10ish, that I remember sharing like, okay, this is what I'm planning to eat, so that I could help my parents with the insulin decisions and all that. But then I got involved pretty much when I started being on the pump, which is around like 13, 14 years of age. And that's where I started, like, it started making more sense to me. If I don't, and I was growing up as well, and it was a lot more information, especially because I was on the pump program, which, to make it simple, was like when the Quebec government was deciding whether they wanted to cover the cost of the pump for children or not. So it was the first like free pumps in Quebec, which is what I was on. So that meant a lot of work because it was like meals. You had to write down everything. You had to like write down to decide all the basal plan and all the details for the pump. And so that meant a lot more work. So I think I kind of got involved because it was a bit too much for my parents, but it also helped me to get more hands-on experience. And then I think I became more autonomous probably by the end of adolescence. I think, yeah, like end of teen years, that I was more on my own and I was more like out and about as well. So it kind of required me to be more independent. Yeah, so I think it just kind of came gradually and just transitioned as far as also with the pump, it was easier, less intrusive for me. So that also helped with being more independent as well.
So that's interesting. I'm certainly not about to like ask you to badmouth your parents because I don't think that exists here. But are you saying that you looked up at your parents and you're like, uh-oh, these two are not going to get this? Like, I'm going to have to get it? Did you have that like conscious feeling?
Not so much. I mean, I actually kind of looked up to both of my parents. I think it kind of transitioned because my mom was really in charge of my insulin and handling the whole process. I mean, both parents were really hands-on, but when I was really young or younger, my mom was more in charge of like giving me the insulin shots and all that. And then when I switched to the pump, then my dad took on more of a responsibility. My mom kind of backed up a bit because it was a lot of technology and a lot of details in which my mom was maybe a little less comfortable with.
Yeah.
So it kind of transitioned already. I don't remember feeling like they weren't capable. I think it was just more of like, I can't communicate like all of my decisions to them. You know, at some point it kind of seemed like redundant, like of sitting down and just re-talking about it and all that.
Yeah.
And so it just became more simple to just do it myself. And I mean, it made more sense. So I think it was part of my just teen years of wanting to take control also of my diabetes. But I don't remember thinking that they couldn't do it. I mean, I still talk to my parents about my like how it's going, and I still talk about like technology advancements with my dad specifically because he's always still interested in like looking up at what's like newest and most cool, which is probably why I've also graduated like from one pump to the other at some level because of also his interest in like technology advancements and all that.
That's really interesting. So you and your father still talk about diabetes?
Yeah, we do. Even with my mom, it's just not like the technology is not as much of her forte. But especially with my dad, I forget what was the newest thing. But like when the Control IQ came out, I talked to him about it. I was like, hey, check this out. It's coming in Canada. And now there's an app that's supposed to come out soon. But of course, it always comes out in the US first. So we have to be patient. But yes, and so I'll chat with him about it. And I'll be like, hey, what do you think? You know, you think it could, be a plus.
Wow, that's
for
really
my
cool.
management.
Does he seem Does it seem like it passed him by already, just these advancements, or does he keep up with the idea when you're talking to him about it?
He actually tries to keep up with it, yeah, and he'll read up on it a bit and, find information or posts about, like there are different blogs that talk about the diabetes advancements and stuff. So he'll actually keep up. I think he's really keeping up with it up to now anyways. He's doing a really good job. And I think it fascinates him too to see like how much things have improved and have gotten so much better in just a short period of time. And so it kind of makes him happy too to see that I can get on these new technologies and use these new technologies as well.
How does it make you feel that he cares about it in a way that causes him to keep up with something that, in honesty, he probably doesn't have to?
It makes me happy. It makes me feel supported too, to have that like input and to know that he cares, even like you say, like he wouldn't necessarily have to now because I'm grown up and I'm not even living at home anymore and all that. I think it makes me feel like he's still like part of my diabetes management team.
Yeah, no, it seems sweet to me. I mean, it really does. I mean, you're still a young mom, so
yes,
that whole like, trust me, right now listen, I don't know your life, but this beginning of it is a lot of just like keeping up. It's a lot of functional stuff, right? Like feeding baby, cleaning baby, moving baby from this space to this space. Like when you get to the point where you sit back and you start to kind of, I don't know, like appreciate the bigger picture stuff. Like one day I think you'll think back on this and probably make you cry. So it almost made me cry when you told me that he paid attention to it. And I was like, oh, that's really nice. Do you think do they follow you? Do they know your blood sugars?
Not so much.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't really talk about it anymore. I mean, they know I have a good control. They know I've always been like meticulous about my diabetes, and they're happy about it. I think we talk more about like the outcomes than we talk about the blood sugars, as in like things are going well, I don't have any complications, and they're always grateful for that. But no, they're not like asking for blood sugars and stuff. And I kind of have stopped sharing it, I guess.
Yeah,
I think now I share that more like with my husband because he experiences it like on a day-to-day basis. So it makes more sense to share that with him.
So one last question, and I'm going to get off your parents.
Sure.
That was a weird phrasing. But anyway, do they have any autoimmune issues?
No, they don't actually. No,
okay.
It's I'm the only one in the family.
No kidding. All right. How much is your husband involved? Like, what do I want to know? How long have you been together?
So we've known each other for almost 10 years. We've been married for 5.
Okay.
6.
And is he like an active participant or just a person who's just aware tangentially of what's happening?
He has an active part, has had like all along. I think he's been more involved like actively, I think, before we had our daughter, and it's really nothing against him. It's really just because of the amount of things that we have to do. But he's been involved a lot. I would say he's an emotional support overall, like above everything else. And as far as the management, he's really done a lot to also get informed and also understand. He played a major part as far as diabetes management, like in the end of my pregnancy and during labor and delivery, because that's kind of a time where I zone out. And one of the requirements of like being able to give birth naturally or with my pump without like being on the insulin drip was that I would have someone that was able to take over for me. And so then he really learned how the whole system worked and all, especially because I switched like to the tandem pump during my pregnancy, which is not a great thing to do. But I still did it so that I could have like the basal IQ and all that. And he learned like the switch, and he got familiar with it so that he knew like what changes to make and insulin corrections and all that. And I really appreciated it because it helped me to have like the dynamic that I wanted at birth.
Right. And that is really why you wanted to come on the podcast too, right? Is to talk about your pregnancy.
Yes, well, I think it's a major, like obviously a major event, and I'm happy to talk about like all my journey because it's really I think it's a special journey in and of itself. But I do think it was kind of a major breakthrough and a major event also through my pregnancy and birth.
The first sponsor we're going to hear from today is InPen from Medtronic Diabetes. Now, the InPen is an insulin pen, but it does much more than just that. Head over to InPenToday.com to find out. Actually, you can head over to InPenToday.com right now and follow along with what I'm saying. When you get there, the first thing you're going to think to yourself is, ooh, what a lovely shade of blue. And then you'll scroll and scroll, and you'll see that the InPen attaches itself, with Bluetooth to an app on your phone. Goodness gracious, that is correct, an app on your phone that talks to your insulin pen. This is good news, and here's why. That app is going to offer you a dosing calculator, dosing reminders, carb counting support, and a digital logbook. Furthermore, you'll be able to see your current glucose. Why did I do that? Your current glucose on your app, your meal history, dosing history, activity log, generate reports for your doctors and for yourself. You'll be able to see your glucose history, active insulin remaining, and it's all in an attractive application that is easy to read and easy to understand. And the pen itself is exactly what you would expect. Now here's something interesting. This offer is only available to people with commercial insurance, and terms and conditions apply, but you may pay as little as $35 for the InPen. Why is that? Because InPen from Medtronic Diabetes does not want cost to be a roadblock to you getting the therapy that you need. So head over to InPenToday.com and find out if you're one of those people who can get the InPen for just $35. InPen requires a prescription and settings from your healthcare provider. You must use proper settings and follow the instructions as directed, or you could experience high or low glucose levels. For more safety information, visit InPenToday.com. Now I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. Dexcom.com/Juicebox. You can make knowledge your superpower with the Dexcom G6 CGM system. That's right, the Dexcom G6 can help you make better diabetes treatment and diabetes management decisions. All of this with 0 finger sticks and no calibrations. The Dexcom G6 lets you see your glucose numbers with just a quick glance at your smart device or your receiver. Get alerted when your glucose levels are heading high or low, and share your data with up to 10 followers. And best of all, the Dexcom G6 is covered by most insurance plans. Now, if your glucose alerts and readings from the G6 do not match symptoms or expectations, you just use your blood glucose meter to make those diabetes treatment decisions. Here's some of the highlights of the Dexcom G6. Of course, seeing your glucose readings right on your smart device. Always know your number with just a quick glance, and you'll be able to see your trend lines. These are very, very helpful for understanding where you're at, where you've been, and how you got there. In the end, in my opinion, the Dexcom does this, and it does it well. It shows you your blood glucose currently. It shows you what direction your glucose is moving in, if it's moving, and how fast it's moving in that direction. Speed, direction, and number. These are the things that we use to make decisions for Arden every day, and I think you'll really like them. Head to Dexcom.com/Juicebox and get started today. Links in the show notes and links at juiceboxpodcast.com to Dexcom, InPen, and all the sponsors. Just the way you answered the questionnaire to be on the podcast, I thought this is a person who planned her pregnancy really well, thought about it a lot ahead of time. This was not like you didn't wake up on a Saturday morning and go, hey, I think we should get a pregnancy test. Like you were thinking about this for a while, right? So
Yes.
Did you want to be a mom for a long time?
Yes, so I really wanted to be a mom, and we wanted to be like parents. Like, I think, well, we talked about it way before we even got married, and it was really something that we wanted, and we did plan about it. We did talk, like we mentioned earlier, about how that might play out with me having diabetes, and one of the goals was kind of have the children earlier than later, also to to not add to more complications possible by waiting longer. But I was also studying, and I was in university, so we wanted to, for me to be able to finish my bachelor's before to have a child, just so that things would be organized and in process. And so that was one of our goals. And then, yes, we talked about it a lot, about just how it would look, but we definitely wanted it to be a part of our little family, to have children as well.
This is interesting. So you're like a super mature person, aren't you?
I don't know. I don't know about that, but I do like to be organized.
But I mean, your whole life, like, do you have other brothers and sisters?
I have one sister.
Okay. If we made one of you the super, like, responsible one and the other one lesser, you'd be the responsible one.
I mean, of the two, yes, I am probably the most responsible. I wouldn't want my sister to hear that, but no. I mean, we kind of have both I think we just grew up being really responsible and like learning responsibilities early on. But I have developed, I think and I think diabetes has contributed to my being very, very disciplined and very organized.
If I spoke to your sister, would she call you like type A and uptight? Or would she just say you're responsible?
I don't know. I mean, I think I'd be more of the just responsible one.
Okay. All right. It's fine. No, I'm not saying you are. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of it. So, and the reason that made me think about that is because you're with this guy who obviously you're going to be married to while you're in school. While you're in school, you have this feeling. And so you're younger there. And you're already thinking ahead, like, I want to have a baby before my body has any chance to, if it's going to break down in some way, before it does. And like, it actually feels to me like you thought, I'm going to put my body under this stress while it's young enough to bounce back from it better. Like, those are all thoughts you had, right?
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah. I think I'm getting to know you, Myriam. All right. I see what's going on here. Because, I don't know, that just seems like a lot of foresight.
I do like to plan it ahead, and I think I wanted to put like the best chances, and that's really like a French thing that I'm going to translate because I can't remember how to say it in English.
Wait, say it again in French.
Like what's that?
Say it again in French.
Oh, now it escaped my mind, but like mettre les chances de mon côté, like to plan, to put like all the best or all the best chances on your side. Okay. So why wait and like until you have complications or more difficulties, and then when you can, you're healthy in the prime of life, and that you can give the best chance to you and to your child as well. Yeah,
I mean, listen, I love the way you're thinking. I'm just amazed that you were thinking that way while you were still in school.
Yes.
That's all.
I understand.
When the other kids went to a party, did you just look at them and think, heathens? Like, is that...
No, I don't try to judge others, but I do. I made my own choices, and I think I was already married while I was in school too, so it just didn't... I had other priorities, and that's kind of what I would always say, and I did not party. Wow.
You were married when you were in university?
Yes.
Oh, you're so interesting. Okay. I also, can I tell you something? Let me just be honest, that I hate about your generation.
What's that?
I'm going to say, you won't make fun of anybody. Like, not even like in a tertiary way. Like, I'm like, I'm clearly making a joke. Like, oh, those people went to a party. You're like, oh, heathens. You're like, well, I wouldn't want to say that about them. I really wish you would have had the opportunity to grow up when I did, because people would have like talked people for no reason whatsoever. It was a ton of fun, and it just doesn't exist in the world anymore.
No, anymore. We can't do that anymore. It's just not part of like how we're trained.
I know.
We're allowed to function.
Just trying to tell you, it's fun. So don't worry, I can't do it either. You guys drug me right into your into your apocalypse or whatever this is that's happening right now. Okay, so you are way planned ahead, and we're gonna just obviously assume that this part of your nature took over when you were planning for. So what is for diabetes and pregnancy? What's the first thing you feel like you have to conquer when you realize you're gonna get pregnant?
The first thing I think is just understanding like what part diabetes is gonna play in my pregnancy, like throughout my pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's the kind of thing where it's like, oh, I'm super excited, I'm pregnant, and the next thing is, okay, so what is this gonna look like? You know, it's a little different, I think, than, you know, being pregnant when you don't have a health condition or you don't maybe have specifically diabetes, where you're just like overexcited of being pregnant, period. I think I was super overexcited, and my husband as well. But at the same time, we were kind of like, oh, so what does this mean? You know, and then we went back to the planning process of like how it would look. And I mean, it was to the point, like, because I didn't want it to be overwhelming, like even before I got pregnant, like when we started talking about, okay, this, you know, this could be a good time and all that, and I mean, we were really open to whatever would happen. But I had already started talking with like my endocrinologist, because I knew that based on like my readings and all that, that it would be best, you know, you kind of have to have a good A1C level before getting pregnant, and so that you have the best opportunities or the best chances. And so I had already started to have that discussion to make sure like we were already in the green light before actually like concretizing our plan.
So prior to you thinking about like concretely saying we're going to start, by the way, I feel like your conception was super boring, but we'll get to that later. And so, like,
it was not. I mean, it was just that now we're talking about this part of like,
I know, I'm just
the diabetes part, but it does, you know, it kind of is a major part of our life, you know, whether we want it or not. And I mean, sometimes it is frustrating, but unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, it is a major part of like everything, of every decision.
No, I think it's very important. That's why I'm happy to dig through it. I just imagine that you rang a bell, you took your temperature, and you're like, ring, it's time, get over here. But I know that's not really what happened. So
it does sound like that, but hopefully it was not like that.
Maybe you should ask him. Maybe you'd be like, yeah, I did feel like I was punching a time clock that day.
Yeah.
All right, I'm here to work. But seriously, what I want to know is, what was your A1C prior to when you thought we're going to have a baby?
So I don't have the exact number, because that's the thing. I was already, pretty much what my doctor said was that I was already in the green light. So I didn't have to do like any work, but I was always around the 6. Okay. So I think I was like around 6.4, roughly at the beginning of, or before I got pregnant.
Was that on Control IQ or no, basal IQ?
Neither. At that point, that's
the Medtronic still.
Yes.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. When do you go on the basal IQ then?
I actually went on basal IQ like when I was 5 or 6 months pregnant.
Myriam, you're a baller. You just most people would not switch their pump in the middle of their pregnancy.
Well, it's not recommended. I mean, I'm not making a statement like for doctors, but one of my issues was that, so I always want to be like in range, right? I've always tried my best to do that. And then when I got pregnant, it was more challenging, obviously, because there are all the hormones, and especially like as you progress like through the second and third trimester, it gets more and more. Your body fights against you. That's pretty much what I'm going to say. Your hormones, really, and so it's harder to like your sensitivity to insulin is really reduced, and so that made it hard for me, because I really didn't want to be high. Like I didn't want to have high blood sugars a lot of the time. Which meant I was always like giving a lot of insulin and all that. But the downside was that I was also going into low blood sugars. And so, as doctors are always concerned about low blood sugars more than high, my doctor was really concerned about that. And so then she kind of recommended that as well, as far as like, maybe that'll help you like lower your level of low blood sugars, which was.
I want to make sure we didn't have a misunderstanding through language, but when I called you a baller, like I think it's amazing you changed a pump during the pregnancy. I wasn't judging you.
Yes, I understood that.
Yeah. I was like, because you right away were like, you went back to like, no, nothing here on the Juicebox podcast should be considered advice. I was like, no. Like I thought that was amazing.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that you were just like, I'm going to change my pump now. I don't care if I'm pregnant or not. I'll figure this out. Like you're not scared of diabetes at all, right?
No, not at all. And that, like, I meant that in the sense of like the doctors like usually say like don't do that. But I was kind of like, hey, that's an opportunity. Like if it's time to do it, there's no better time than now to do it. And even if I'm pregnant, because it was going to help me do even better like during pregnancy. And so because I think it just came out, like it was just out in Canada, and I was like, oh, I'm getting my hands on that.
Yeah, no, I like you. You're full of energy. So you were around a 6 or so prior. Did you feel any pressure to make it lower before you got pregnant, or everybody was happy? Okay.
Everybody was happy, so I was just like, it's fine. I didn't make more efforts to lower it down.
Okay. And then all the things that you were concerned about your diabetes before getting pregnant, did any of them, most of them, some of them come true during pregnancy, or did different issues pop up that you didn't expect?
I mean, there were nothing really scared me. Like I wasn't that afraid. I think what came up was more of like the fear, like, well, it's not necessarily their fault. I mean, it's their job, but like the doctors, and I'm not talking like specifically on my endocrinologist, but I got on like a team of endocrinologists for like managing pregnancy diabetes and so I think there was a lot of misconceptions, and then it was a lot of generalizations too, because they were managing like pregnancy diabetes, and then I was a type 1 diabetes, was also in that, like seeing the same doctors. And so there was a lot of challenges, more in the sense of I started being scared, and not because of myself. I mean, I was maybe concerned, and that's why I was really working hard, but there was all this fear of like, okay, I'm gonna get like high blood pressure, or I'm gonna be bedridden and all that, or I'm gonna have to be inducted, which was the main thing that came back a lot, was like, you're not going to bring this baby to term. And my answer was, on what basis? And that was like my answers throughout pregnancy was, on what basis? And there really wasn't any basis, as far as like I was doing fine, like the whole pregnancy I was doing fine, but the idea was, oh, we don't want like an issue to occur before we do it, so we just want to do it.
Were they planning for the worst all the time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Based on, you think, their expectations from their historical knowledge of other pregnancies, or just do you think they just play from a scared position generally? Did you get any feeling for that?
I think that's kind of like their working like model, in the sense that it's kind of like the protocol and, risk management, and, so they're just always preventing the worst thing from happening. But I mean, it was a challenge for me because there was no real issue. And it's like, it wasn't all that different for me to manage my diabetes during pregnancy than it was before, except that I just had to make changes like more often, and I had to be like more on top of it. But it wasn't all that different. And so to me, and one of the things was like right away having to be in the high risk pregnancy clinic. And to me, it didn't really make sense, because I didn't see how I fit in with like individuals that had like babies with malformations, and individuals that had high blood pressure, or I forget the specific terms for high blood pressure in pregnancy, but like all these challenges. And I was like, okay, I don't really see where I fit in that. And yet that was like the same mindset was present for me, as far as like, okay, we gotta manage this, like we gotta be on top of this. And so there wasn't a lot of freedom for just like enjoying my pregnancy, which I thought was like central to being pregnant, was actually enjoying the pregnancy.
Yeah. Preeclampsia?
Yes.
Is that it? High blood pressure during pregnancy, right?
Yes.
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 And Okay. I'm going to derail us for a second, and I'm going to say something that you're going to find uncomfortable to answer, I believe. But what do you do for a living? What did you go to school for?
I was studying in psychology, and I'm actually still studying now. And I'm in my PhD now in clinical psychology.
You're a thoughtful, intelligent person. Am I wrong or am I right?
I would like to think so. I do like to think.
Your ability to, like, listen, part of the way I do this is on purpose so that it seems fresh while we're having the whole conversation, because it is. Like, you and I did not speak prior to this. I didn't tell you I was going to ask you some questions. You're not prepared for this at all. And that usually causes people to pause and formulate their thoughts. And I can feel that when I'm talking to them. But I have changed direction. I've brought your parents up. I've made uncomfortable jokes about you having sex with your husband. And the second my voice stops, you have a clear, concise, and thoughtful answer. Where's your IQ? In the 140s? What are we talking about here?
I haven't taken the test. And since you're asking a future psychologist, I'm probably not going to take it either.
I think you should. I think you'd make me feel bad about myself if I knew your IQ. Oh, no. What do you think of that? Are you, this is you though, right? I'm talking to you. You're not like putting something on. You're not extra focused. You didn't take like an Adderall for this or something. You're like, this is just who you are.
No, I didn't do anything specific. I mean, I woke up this morning and I was like, let's do this.
It's very impressive.
Pretty much how prepared I was. And wow. I mean, I looked up I was like, okay, I'll pull out my book in case he asks questions. And that was pretty much it.
I am super impressed with you so far, just so you know.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is your husband aware of how smart you are? Or is he one of those smart people too? Tell me the truth.
He's also very smart.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, listen, tell this kid I'd like it to invent a way to melt the ground in Canada so we can have vegetables more throughout the year.
I can do that.
Is the baby's head like bigger because of how big its brain is?
Are the vegetables bigger?
No, your baby. Does your baby have a giant head to hold all the brains?
Oh,
I'm just
she's got a big brain of her own, actually.
I
think, yeah, she has a pretty giant brain.
Took yours and that dad's, and we squished it in there. I imagine it doesn't even fit in a regular size head. Honestly, it's just, it's evident. It's so easy to talk to you because you know what you think, you know how to articulate it. It's just, I'm having a very good time talking to you, which is I probably shouldn't break that wall while we're having the conversation, but I just want to tell you that I'm having a great time and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I mean, it's definitely I'm very happy to be talking with you as well. And I'm happy to be sharing and to be having this conversation. It's really a shared feeling, I think.
Oh, I'm glad. Thank you. You didn't even like do the ham-fisted thing of going, "Oh, Scott, that's why I listen to the podcast because you're so smart." Like you didn't do any of that stuff. You're a really thoughtful person. You don't even and you joke around in an intelligent way. Even I like you. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm just, that's it. I'm sorry. I'm done. I'm gushing over you and I shouldn't be. You're terrific. So,
thank you.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure to say it. Okay. So we make the baby, right? E equals MC pregnant. And then I'm just teasing. I'm sure it was a lovely evening. And so, or was it an evening? We made Arden in the basement on our way to trick-or-treating with our son.
You know, it's really weird because even with all this planning and all this, that seems so like planned and organized, and like we don't actually know the date that she was made.
Okay, we were trying
nor the time nor the place.
We were trying for Arden to be born in the summertime, and so we had like this late fall, like we were trying to get pregnant in the late fall, and my mom was at the house, and we were getting ready to go trick or treating with Cole, who, I mean, honestly, was probably like 3 years old. And my wife says to my mom, "Hey, can you like take him outside? We'll be out in a minute." And I was like, "What are we doing?" And she's like, "Come here." I was like, "Okay." Anyway, it was, we don't have
There are very fun stories of.
Yeah. It was hard to get rid of that sofa.
I bet.
Lots
of memories.
Such a sentimental feeling. Yeah. of rushing to make a baby before going out to trick or treat. Anyway, baby's here. When's the first time it gets hard? When do the hormones really hit you? And your blood sugar gets...
The hormones as far as like diabetes or as far as like pregnancy hormones just in general?
Well, no, when does the blood sugar start getting difficult?
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, right away actually.
Is that how you knew you were pregnant?
Because the first trimester, I was low, like really low all the time. It was very hard actually because I don't know. It's like I developed like a hypersensitivity to insulin.
Okay.
But not in a sense that I could like control or like I could like just say, okay, I'll lower everything. It was kind of just like out like anytime and anywhere and like just it was haphazard and it was very challenging to know where to position myself. And at the same time, I was like, okay, if it is going to get high, it's going to get hard at some point. It's going to get hard, right? It's going to get... And so then I kind of had that. So I was like, okay, I can't lower too much. But in the end, I was just really sensitive at the beginning and I just needed to lower my insulin levels. And
how long did that
last?
For
At least the first 3 months.
3 months. Okay. I wonder how that works, like functionally. I wonder if it's that your sensitivity lessened or if there was a lack of something in your body that used to exist that didn't anymore in that time. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe your need fell, not your sensitivity heightened. Or maybe I'm wrong. Like maybe it's vice versa. I have no idea. It's an interesting question. I guess either way, it doesn't matter. You combat it by lowering your basal and your meal.
It's hard to know. I mean, it is a good argument too because I mean, obviously, the first trimester you're a bit more sensitive as well. I was slightly nauseous too. So I mean, obviously, also the amount of food and the type of food changed as well. So there are obviously different factors involved, and I argue it as being sensitivity, but it might be a lot of different things as well, for sure.
Yeah.
And because I can't actually test it,
Yeah, right. It doesn't matter in the end. In the end, you changed your insulin to meet the need. The need was less. But you did think about like when you turned it down, you thought about like, when's it going to come back?
Yes.
That was in your head. Okay. Was it so much less that it was like managing a different person? Like I guess my question is like, if your basal was like a unit an hour, did it become 0.9 an hour? Or did it become 0.5 an hour?
It was more like small changes,
Okay.
I would say. So a lot more of small changes. I think the major thing that changed was probably more of like the insulin to carb ratio. So just like how much insulin you give at meals. But yeah, no, it wasn't all that bad. But it didn't seem like managing an odd version of myself.
Okay.
Because it was like unusual and it wasn't like obvious that like you usually see, okay, like in the evenings I'm always high, so now I'm gonna like change my basal or carb rates. But then this was more unusual and like I couldn't really put my finger on it easily, so that was a bit odd. So it didn't feel like it was something that I had never really encountered in that way. So it did seem odd at first and kind of challenging. And I think that's why it took me a while to just realize what I needed to do as change or like just realize what I was into.
And then the shift comes at the second trimester. It goes the other direction. Does it go significantly in the other direction or is it more small changes like you're talking about?
So in the second trimester, I'd say I was pretty much like, I felt like I was back roughly at what I was like pre-pregnancy. So I was bringing up my insulin levels slowly but surely, like every other week, I think. Even every week sometimes but at the beginning it was more like every other week, and I was just bringing it up slowly but surely until the third trimester. And at the third trimester, that's where it started being like tougher. Like I would make more changes more often, every like other day or a couple times a week. I was getting like input from like a diabetes specialized nurse and also my endocrinologist, and so that kind of helped me. But I was also doing it by myself and figuring out like what needed to be changed or improved. It wasn't. So I think it was progressive. So I think like the gap between like pre-pregnancy or like beginning and end was probably bigger than I felt it. But since it was like gradual, it didn't feel like I didn't get like a big jump in in insulin levels even at the end of pregnancy. But I did, yeah, I increased pretty much all the way to, well, almost the end, and then at the end it kind of plateaued and even lowered a bit.
Excellent. Okay, yeah. At the end it is. Did you breastfeed then?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Okay. Did you notice your needs change during that again?
Not really. I mean, yes and no. It was kind of an odd situation because even like right after birth, they expect your blood sugars to go like to change radically, and in my case, it didn't really. Like it didn't change radically back to pre-pregnancy levels, and so I ended up being in a high blood sugar because for a while, well, like for quite a few hours, because they said, okay, bring back everything down, like put it back to like pre-pregnancy levels, when in reality that wasn't what I needed. And that's what I felt. I felt like, okay, I'm just high, like just leave my blood sugar, like just leave my controls like how they are, and I'll just handle it like later on when I get low. But yeah, so it was progressive. It was progressive. It progressively went back down. But not, again, it didn't drop right after giving birth. Right. And I think there's a lot of hormones involved in all that. So
yeah, no, it makes me feel like, yeah, sure, there's a way we expect this to go, but you still have to stay flexible and make decisions based on what's actually happening. It's not just going to follow like a rule book necessarily.
No, absolutely not. And that's what kind of frustrates me with like protocols. And I know there's a reason for them and I know there's a use for them. But it kind of what frustrates me because like I wasn't told, I think once, like I don't remember consciously being told once that like during like after birth, your blood sugars might stay up. It was just like always, okay, be careful, they're going to go down. It's going to go down. Even like during the birth process, because in the birth process is the opposite. They're like during labor and delivery, your blood sugars are going to go up for sure, But then you're like, I'm sorry, they're going to go down again. They're going to go down. And that's like the argument, but there's like just one-sided and you might get either one. And I got opposites on both ends because I got high blood sugars during pregnancy and high blood sugars after pregnancy and like after birth rather. And it wasn't like, in the book, it wasn't textbook. I wasn't a textbook case.
How about the days after? Like, did breastfeeding make you low?
It did a bit. It was hard to know because there's like all the sleep deprivation involved and all that. So that was another story. Managing diabetes right after birth is not any easier. It's worse than during pregnancy, actually. At least for me, it was because then there's all the sleep and there's like the waking up at weird hours and then you're hungry but you don't know what time it is and all that. But yes, sometimes when I was breastfeeding the first few days, I would get low or right after. But it's like quickly, like in the few weeks that went after, I didn't notice it anymore. It wasn't like major drops.
Like you figured out.
Yeah, I don't know. Pattern. I mean, it didn't seem like it affected me that much.
Okay.
But I kind of adjusted and tried to be careful if it wanted to go in that direction.
Like just recently in an episode, Jenny described her diabetes as like getting a newborn baby, like having a newborn baby to take care of. So then it's almost like getting diabetes twice or two babies, however you want to look at it.
That's exactly how I felt actually after birth. I felt like I had two babies to take care of because my diabetes was out of whack. And then I had a baby that had no idea how this world functioned. And so now I was trying to help both.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's crazy because now even my daughter now sleeps full nights. But sometimes I still get woken up like 3-4 times a night because of my diabetes. And I'm like, just let me go to sleep.
You should teach
both my baby and my diabetes.
You should teach the diabetes to sleep through the night too. Can you Ferberize it? Is that a word?
Yes, that's what it needs. It's like you're off duty. You're just off duty at night.
Well, that old book from the 60s, they would tell you to let it cry, right? And then there's there's Ferberize. I think that's Ferberizing, right? And there's some people who sleep with their babies and keep the baby next to the bed and like a little thing. And how did you I mean, this is how did you do that? How did you get your baby to sleep through the night? What's the process you used?
Well, the process was gradual. So we had her like in the room, but in her own bed, like the first 6-ish months, I think. Mm-hmm. Because like she would wake up like every 3-4 hours at night, and it was just, it made more sense, but it was also like the recommendations that we had from a few like professionals that, okay, keep her in the room, but like don't keep her in the bed. And we really made an effort to do that, because apparently it helps also with the like gradually sleeping through the night. Yeah. And at like 6-7 months, like we were overwhelmed. We were really tired.
I remember that.
And so
I know that. I remember that feeling of the first time, like we put Cole to bed and he didn't wake up a few hours later, and then a few hours later he didn't wake up, and you were like, oh my God, is he going to stay asleep? This is amazing.
Yeah, and then you can't sleep for the whole night because you're worried about the fact that they're asleep.
Yeah. But then once you give over to it, you're like, you're so exhausted by the time it's usually like that first 6 months, and you're just so exhausted by the time it's over. Yeah, I don't, it's crazy. It really is. And I didn't have to raise a baby, the first time with diabetes. The second time, Arden was 2. And so I did get to, I mean, in fairness to me, I got to sleep for a couple of years.
Well, there's that. When we're adults, we ration our sleep a bit more.
I don't know for everybody else, but I can walk through my house in the pitch black dark. Like I don't need light. Oh. I know where I'm at. Like I know how to. I don't. Does anybody else like do that thing where you kind of like bring your forearm up a little bit to like touch the wall corners, and like there's one door
hitting your head or something.
Yeah, there's one door in the hallway nobody ever closes. I'm always completely aware of that. I reach out with my hand as I approach it to make sure I'm not going to walk into it. And I use the smoke detector lights as like mile markers and.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're the little night lights. Night lights.
I wish that wasn't something I knew how to do, by the way. I wish I would just go to sleep and never wake up. Arden needed insulin this morning at 5:30 in the morning.
Oh,
and
that's no fun.
I was like, her blood sugar just kind of popped up out of nowhere, and I was like, oh. And then you had that thought in your head, like, oh, she'll be awake soon. She'll bolus, yep. And I was like, no, I'm gonna do it now. So, anyway. Yeah, it'll. I don't know. I was gonna say it'll get better, but it probably won't. Do you think
she'll get more? They'll get more independent, as they grow up. It's kind of. Well, so my parents don't remember all the pain that they went through. I try to ask them sometimes, and they don't remember. They're like, "Oh, it was fine. We just took it a day at a time." I'm like, "Oh yeah, are you sure?" It feels like it would have been a bit, rough at some point, but you all forget that at some point, apparently.
Does it make you feel good that they don't remember, or are you looking for somebody to commiserate with?
I think it's better that they don't remember, because I feel like it probably was hard. I mean. A little part of me would like to know like how bad it was, but at the same time I'm like, if they still remember now, it would be like really, really bad. Yeah, so they probably focus on the good moments, which is a good thing. Yeah. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, that's lovely. All right. So now, based on the rest of your conversation, do you already have your second and third child planned out, or are you just having one? What's the deal?
No, not yet.
You said, so now no. I'm like, hold on. Don't lie to me. Is it just something you haven't told your husband yet?
Oh, no, nothing like that. Okay. It's just because I'm back I'm in my PhD now. So I'm trying to get ahead a little bit before we have another child and go through this whole process again. Because that's the thing too. I'd like to have more time, which was one thing I did have with my first pregnancy during pregnancy, I wasn't all that busy. And so I had a lot of time to exercise and to handle all the appointments and all that. And so I had a lot more freedom. And so I'd like to have a bit of a structure like that as well, where I'm not in school 5 days a week and then handling a child that's already there and also a pregnancy. I think that would be
Are you hoping
asking a
to
lot.
go into practice, or are you going to teach? What's your idea for after?
My goal is to go into practice once I finish.
Yeah. Well, there's all those people who have PTSD about like polar bear attacks and stuff like that. You have to help, right? Don't laugh. That has to happen. What about
I'm not sure about polar bears. I don't think we
beavers?
have any around here.
Beavers? What about a beaver? No.
Beavers
Moose?
don't attack, as far as I'm concerned. I've seen some.
I'm strongly thinking about calling this episode "Beavers Don't Attack." You got to be careful while you're talking on the podcast.
I mean, that would be a very Canadian title.
So, you just said that, and I was like, "Ooh, that's what I'm going to call this episode." Is there? I know you like. Is there anything about the process that we didn't speak about that you wanted to?
Well, the only thing I can think of is really about like just the fact that, you know, even with all the pressure of like the hospital or like the staff and all that, like I was still able to make it a natural labor and delivery process, and I didn't have to be like induced or have the insulin drip and all that. And I think it's a message that doesn't get out all that much. Like even when I was pregnant, it was really, really, really hard to find any like good stories. I don't know if you've been able to find any, but like personally, I have not. Or just like one from like 20 years ago, like one person who was able to that had type 1 diabetes and was able to give birth the way they wanted, so which was naturally. And all that. And I think that's also what really encouraged me of just being able to accomplish that. It was like a major, major accomplishment. And I was kind of like, look, it's possible. And that's what I was also like telling the medical staff and all that. Like, stop saying that there's only one way to do this and that there's only like one outcome possible. It's like it's possible to have a healthy pregnancy. It's possible to have a healthy labor and delivery process, even with diabetes, and maybe even because of diabetes, because you end up being so much more careful about what you eat, what you exercise, like how you exercise and what you do, and how, you know, you try to reduce your stress and all that. And I think even like healthy moms maybe don't spend all that time to think about every little action in their pregnancy. And so I think it's even like a benefit to have ultimately diabetes if you want to like see the silver lining in a very difficult situation, because it helps you to be very very focused.
Yeah, I understand. I like how important it is to you for people to hear a good story too. And I've heard a number of stories that are positive. And it is definitely doable. It's a lot of work, obviously. How was the baby's birth weight? Was it like a normal birth weight?
Yeah, she was 6'3", 6 pounds 3 ounces. She was born at 38 weeks, so
oh wow,
she didn't put on the fat yet.
You're just like a little baby making machine over there. You've just, just did a really nice job. Did it feel like an accomplishment when it was over? Did you feel like, wow, this was a lot of effort and I did it, or did you not even have time to feel that way?
No, I really felt it. I was very, very. I felt really accomplished, very proud of the whole process when it was all said and done. Like even in the hospital, because it was so unique, and even just the whole process was very unique compared to even regular like labor and delivery processes. Like even the doctor was just like, I've never seen this before. Like, what happened? And even the nurse like was going off shift, and because they were switching before I was getting rid of her, she's like, I'm staying here. I want to see this baby come in this world. And so I think that it kind of was the fulfillment of like all the effort and all the work that I put into it. I mean, I would have liked it to be more enjoyable in the sense that to not feel all this pressure or all this fear during pregnancy. That's probably the only thing one of the things that I would definitely wish could change. But even with that, it's still.
Well, how could that change? Should the doctors just prepare themselves but not worry out loud so much? Like, I mean, you want to be
it,
informed, right? But you don't want somebody to like, I don't know what I'm like. You don't want somebody to rain on your parade. You just want to
yeah.
understand what could happen and then have somebody tell you, but we're going to act like that's not going to happen right now. Like, is that
Mm,
the, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure.
well, like I think it's maybe just, well, one of the things that we noticed during pregnancy was just if doctors took more time to like get to know the context and get to know the couple, it would make a big difference. And that's, at least that's what we experienced. Like, and we had to do it kind of well, very intentionally, actually, not just kind of, but like, because we were in the high risk clinic, a pregnancy clinic, and the gynecologist that would see us would come for like 5 seconds, and look at the scans that the technician had done and say, okay, look, everything's good. Okay, now take this pill, because you're diabetic and you have to take that. You should already have started. And, it was just kind of like this really quick and very protocol, very clear, very direct, like type of interaction. And then when we were like, okay, this is not going to work. Like, we really need them to understand like our perspective and what we want. And so then we asked the gynecologist like come back and to actually have a discussion with her of how we wanted our pregnancy and how maybe my situation was not typical because I was exercising daily and like my numbers were perfect and all of that. And so when we gave her like the whole picture, she was like, oh, like, okay, like she realized like we're not, like we've planned this kind of like you've seen, and we kind of gave her this picture of like the context of like who we are, and like this is not like haphazard, it's not like a baby we made on the corner of the street, like it's something that was planned and organized, and like all of life was around that too.
How many
And
babies do you think are made on the street corners?
I hope not any.
Oh my gosh.
But when we had that conversation afterwards, she respected our decision, and she respected, and even at the end, like when we were at 37 weeks, and she was like, okay, we'll make like a more in-depth scan, not scan there, but I forget the word now. It's been too long since I've given birth now. But they looked more in detail, and she made sure everything was okay. And she's like, okay, everything's okay. Now, if you were any other woman, I would book an induction now, like in the next few days. But I know, like, you had expressed your decision, and so now, like, what are you still following that decision now, or are you ready to change? And I was like, no, like this is our decision. We're still keeping it. There's no indication, no reason for it to change. And so she was like, okay, well, I respect your decision. And it was really like,
do you think
that's kind of the involvement that I think they could have?
Yeah, it sounds to me like your experience was that physicians took all of the bad experiences they've had in the past and applied it to you before they even knew who you were. Like maybe everyone doesn't do the exercise and everyone doesn't eat well and everyone doesn't keep their A1C in check and stay on top of their insulin, but you were going to, and they just didn't know that about you. So they planned for what they see most frequently. They just did, but they don't know you well enough, you think, to adjust it. Like, you know what I mean? Like they don't spend enough time with you because listen, I don't want to take credit here, but I talked to you for about 20 minutes and I was like, this lady's really smart and well thought out and considerate. And like, I don't know how your doctor couldn't figure that out about you faster. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But they just don't have the time. I think they don't have, or they don't take the time. I don't know. I'm not like blaming them for their intentions.
No. Yeah.
But I think it's just, it's just another woman with another baby, and it's just like, let's get
got diabetes, and this is going to be a problem, and here's what the problems are going to be, and well, this is how we take care of the problems, and blah 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 blah. Instead of seeing that maybe it doesn't have to be like that all the time. I wonder what that experience with you. I would hope and wonder if the experience your physicians had with you would make them rethink how they talk to other people, because I think that when you plan for failure, you kind of preordain it a little bit too. Like you give people permission to fail when you tell them they're going to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's kind of the self-fulfilling prophecy, and you kind of you're you're kind of planning for failure. It's pretty much what ends up happening. You're planning for when the failure will occur and not if. And I think the difference is huge, but it's not so clear. Like once you're in a high risk clinic and all that, it seems like the if becomes the when, and it's just always planning for, okay, we got to make sure nothing happens. And it's unfortunate because it creates this. It's kind of like everybody's in the same mold and everybody's just the same. It's like a cookie cutter. And the challenge too is, and it kind of brings me back to when you were asking, like, are we in the 1978s or in the 1970s? And I mean, the challenge too is that even like doctors read science, like literature, scientific literature and all that. And even the scientific literature now has articles that talk about like comparing induction versus no induction for individuals with diabetes and different things like that. And ultimately, you know, the results show more and more that it's not really all that necessary. I mean, there are situations that it is, and it's a procedure that's necessary in even for individuals who don't have diabetes. In certain circumstances, it's necessary. But generally, even with individuals with diabetes, it's not like the decision by default. Mm-hmm. And yet, like in the practice, it's like doctors are not so comfortable with that nuance, or they're not necessarily offering that nuance, and it's much more the protocol, like this, whatever has been done continues to be done. Now, even if technologies change, you know, I mean, research is not all that developed with insulin pumps because it's still fairly new, but nonetheless, like a lot of research now is starting to be produced with different insulin pumps and like Dexcom and all these continuous glucose monitoring systems. And these things too make a huge difference, even in pregnancy. You know, just being able to see your blood sugars like 24/7 all the time, and then having some of the pumps that connect, you know, and adjust insulin with that. I mean, that has nothing to do with how we were handling diabetes 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's a whole new world. It should make a difference, and it does make a difference, but it's not like...
It takes the time for the industry to catch up, the doctors being
it really
the industry.
Does.
Yeah. And it should be to me, it should be an indicator to the pump companies, everybody making an algorithm, that you have to keep innovating these algorithms to allow for tighter and tighter control, because people are going to want to wear them when they're pregnant too. And you know what I mean? You need to be able to give people more access to their target ranges.
Yes, because that's the thing with the Control IQ, for example. Now it's still it's higher. The range is higher than what you would want in pregnancy, specifically, but it's still just already makes a difference. And I think even companies that make insulin pumps could also even do research like that involves specifically pregnant women. And I know it probably wouldn't make like as much of a difference for them, but it could be really interesting for the scientific world and the community to be able to have that information as well, and not have to only do like independent studies, because a lot of times like they'll exclude like don't use that during pregnancy, or don't use that, and you're like, okay, but it's just because they weren't included in the sample. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's dangerous, right, or that it shouldn't be done. And so I think if they would make research or studies just for these individuals, that could help as well to support like the advancements and the use also of these insulin pumps and technologies that really make a difference.
It would also help if the doctors just, what I want to say, got the stick out of their butt and just realize that they can use it off label well, and don't hide behind the fact that it's not, you know what I mean? Doctors can give you a pump off label. They can do anything they want off label, to be perfectly honest. They could, there are people who get metformin for weight loss that has nothing to do with diabetes, for example. Like that's an off-label use of a medication. Doctors can use their expertise to make decisions like that, instead of just hiding behind the label and going, "Oh, it's not for you, so I can't do it." And it's a little lazy. Right. But I know you're too nice to say anything mean about anybody, because you're Canadian and you're from this generation, so you have no ability to say anything terrible. That's it.
But I mean, I know there's definitely a need for progress, and there's definitely a need, for going, doing more than what like the minimum requirements of the job. And I think it's a challenge for the medical field, and I think one of the only ways for them to gain like confidence in doing that is also for like spending enough time with the individuals and getting to know, but also getting to know like the technologies that are available and all that, so that when you're like, I'm an insulin pump, they don't look at you like, oh, what's that?
Yeah.
Because there's that too.
I agree.
Of also being up to date, especially if you're working with, pregnancy population. It might happen more and more. I mean, there are a lot more type 1 diabetes individuals nowadays, and a lot more that want to be pregnant and that have children. And so that kind of becomes like, you kind of have to inform yourself on that as well, so that you're up to date on what works and what doesn't, and what are the legitimate fears and not just the literature fears,
Yeah, I agree.
Because like one of the big arguments is also like the size of the baby. So usually, like, because you get a lot of insulin resistance at the end of the pregnancy, there's a danger also for babies to become really big. So also there's a reason for like a need for like C-section or whatnot. But that's related to like your A1C level. But even like the studies that they use, well, they're looking at like A1Cs that are different from like the general population. But if you're like using a system like Dexcom or whatnot, or using like basal IQ and all these different technologies, or even just an insulin pump, you have so much more control that your A1C can stay fine during pregnancy. Like my A1C was, even at the end, was like at 5. So when you see that, and then you look at, okay, so the danger of getting a big baby is not really in the books anymore, because, well, you're handling, like, your A1C is like a non-diabetic. And so it's putting things in perspective, and not just going, okay, well, your risk is higher of getting a bigger baby. You're like, okay, but like, compared to what, right?
Yeah, compared to the past, when people didn't have these pumps and the fast-acting insulin and the CGMs and the knowledge and all that stuff, and stop treating 2021 like it's 1975. That's all. It's not that hard. Jeez. All right. Hey, I have a question. I'll let you go then, because you have to get back to your life doing whatever it is you do. And I'm assuming it's taking care of that baby and writing papers, but that's neither here nor there.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But I'm off right now. I just got on holiday, so I'm not writing a paper this holiday season.
My son just wrote his last one the other day, and he seemed pretty thrilled. Yeah. So the podcast, like, why are you on the podcast? Do you listen to it?
I did find it, and I specifically found it during the end of my pregnancy. I was really looking, like I was saying, like for support and stories and encouragement, and that was pretty much what brought me. I really enjoy the podcast app on my phone, and so I look for a lot of different resources, and that's how I found your podcast, and I thought it was a really, really nice endeavor.
Thank you. Oh, that's lovely. See, that's a nice answer. I appreciate that very much. It is a nice endeavor. More people should just refer to me as a nice endeavor. I would enjoy that.
It will be your slogan.
Yeah. Well, no, I love that you just wanted to add like a story about a birth that went well, like to the pot of stories. So I really appreciate it. I just never know. It's funny. I usually just assume that people want to be on the podcast because they listen to it. But a couple of times this year, people have been like, "No, I don't know your podcast." I'm like, "Well, how did you like?" They're like, "I don't listen to it. I have this thing and I wanted to tell somebody, and this seemed like the place to tell it." And I was like, "Oh, wow. Okay." So I like to check to see what happens. So that's excellent. I really appreciate it very much. I am done bothering you if you are done telling me things. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, I encourage you to keep going with your endeavor, because I think it's really nice. It's really nice to have that support in that that place where you can just talk and hear other people's stories too. I think it's kind of hard nowadays, especially to hear, like I was saying, like positive stories and all that. And I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful for the opportunity also to have been able to share that story. I am working on publishing a book about that story too in the near future, and I hope that will also be able to encourage people to continue in that direction and just taking charge and being able to also share their story and also have a story that's really meaningful to them.
Will you write that book in Canadian or in English? Do you think
it'll be in Canadian English?
Do you think in English or in French?
It's in English. It's currently in English.
No. Do you think in English or in French?
Oh, sorry. I actually think in both. Like when I speak in English, I usually think in English, and in French, I think in French.
It doesn't bounce back and forth, though. It depends on what you're speaking at the time.
Yes, well, I attribute that to the fact that I learned young. I learned English young. But yeah, sometimes you lose words, especially when you're bilingual or trilingual. You lose the words you want to use. You only remember in like the other language, and that goes both ways.
Are your parents French?
Yes. Well, they're both Quebecois, but my dad grew up also bilingual.
Is anyone from France?
Like my mom's family, but like from way back.
Way back. Okay, but your parents were born in Canada.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out. It was extra nice talking to you today because I have there's this lovely woman named Isabel who's helping me with my Facebook page. She has type 1 and she's Canadian, but French. And so your accent reminds me a little bit of hers. So it made it like extra nice for me today. That's all.
Well, it was a pleasure talking with you as well. I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
No, it was my absolute pleasure. I appreciate very much that you took the time to do this. It's a really lovely thing for you to do. I think that you're 100% right that being pregnant with type 1 seems very scary, that it can become even more so when doctors lean into the idea that this isn't going to go well. And then it takes what could be a really like a wonderful memory and the beginning of you building a relationship with a child and turn it into a tumultuous affair instead of it being the thing that it could be and it should be. So I really appreciate you doing this. Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Right.
I hope it encourages mothers out there or future parents as well that it's possible and it's not all doom and gloom, but there are really opportunities and possibilities for it to be a joyful and a successful journey as well.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, hold on 1 second for me, okay?
Sure.
A huge thanks to Myriam for coming on the show and sharing her story. And a big thanks to today's sponsor, InPen from Medtronic Diabetes. And Dexcom, makers of the Dexcom G6. Head to InPentoday.com to get started with the InPen. Or, why not both, Dexcom.com/Juicebox to get yourself one of those Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitoring systems. I want to thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. It's usually about here where I tell you about the Facebook group and other stuff, but if I'm being honest, my son wants to have a catch and my daughter needs help with her college stuff, so I gotta go. Don't worry, that information's on the end of some other episodes. You should go listen to one of them.